So the title of today's talk is The Greatest Miracle. And we're going to talk about that more at the end, who that greatest miracle is, but I think you probably know. Okay, so in Unity, we see the story of the birth of Jesus. You know, obviously, we believe that Jesus was born. We believe all of that. But we really see it as a deeply metaphysical, metaphorical, and mystical story for us. And did it happen the way it was told with everything that happened? We don't know. Who knows? We don't know. But what we want to get to anyway is the deeper meaning of what this is all about. And so I was thinking, you know, let's just think for a moment, you know, if everything did happen the way that they said it did, think for a moment the night that Christ child was born. I mean, think how absolutely amazing that had to have been. You know, where stars are rising in the sky to guide the Magi, and where angels are singing and bringing their praises to waken up the shepherds. And, you know, it must an absolutely consciousness-changing experience. And I have to believe that every person on the face of the planet felt it in some way. Because the most incredible, beautiful love was born. Such love was born. And you know, it took us from that consciousness of Adam and Eve's separation, whoosh, and it took us right to oneness. It took us to our true and greater reality. And that, I think, had to be an amazing, amazing, amazing thing, whether all of it happened or not. Well, could you forward me, please? Matthew 5:14-16 says, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." And I sincerely believe that message was for each and every one of us. You are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. And I believe that what this season reminds us of is that potential, that divine seed, that God seed is right in the midst of us. And it is ready to blossom forth. It is ready to emerge as the light that you were created to be. And for each one of it, it's going to be a unique and an individual light. It's not going to be the same. I was thinking about how sometimes I love to turn on a really bright light when I'm wanting to read something. And sometimes I just kind of like to have my lights a little bit dim. And sometimes I like to open up the shades and the doors and see the light from the sun. And sometimes I love to just look out my back window and to see the soft light, the hues of the sunset. And you know, sometimes I just like to sit with a couple of candles flickering and just be in the presence of that. And the point being that not all of us are here to be the light that is referred to as the Christ. But your light matters. Everybody's light matters. Every act of kindness, every act of love, every act of oneness, it all matters. Because it makes a difference in the whole of everything, and you know, of our entire world. So I actually got the idea for this acronym from Dr. Roger Teal, but I decided to create my own stuff with it. So today we're going to talk about following the example of Jesus. How can we be that light? And so the first is to let go. The second is to intuit, use your intuition. The third is to give. And this is to give in service to others. The fourth is heart, to literally live from our heart space with love. And the fifth is to trust, and that's probably one of our biggest ones to get to do. Okay, so to let go. Now, the way that I want to focus on this today is that Jesus was a pure example of forgiveness. And if we are holding grievances and resentments and judgment and blame in our hearts, in our minds, we are not letting our light shine. That has a big old bushel over it. And we're literally releasing toxins into our own physical bodies. So I want to share with you an example from Jesus' life and ministry. In the first incident is reported, the first one I want to share is in the 8th chapter of John. And this is where a woman had literally been caught in the act of adultery. And in those times, when they were caught in the act of adultery, they were stoned to death. And it was actually supposed to be the male and the female. However, since women then were regularly considered second-class citizens, they were only focusing on the women. And so the Pharisees, who are a sect of Jewish people that were obsessed with asserting the minutiae of Mosaic law, they were encouraging people to do this. You know, that's our little egoic brain that's saying, they have wronged me. You know, I have a right to feel like this. I have a right to carry this forward. That's all that chatter that's going on, and they deserve something bad in their lives. And but here comes Jesus. Now, they're trying to trick Jesus because they're always trying to get him in trouble. And so they asked him what should be done to this woman. Now, he could have either agreed that she be stoned to death, and this probably would have caused a riot outside of the city and infuriating the Roman centuries and authorities, and he would be accused of insurrection. Or he could disagree with the stoning, and then he would be guilty of disregarding the law. And so the Pharisees thought they had him trapped. They're like, we know, boy, we got him this time. There's only two options here. And so I'm going to read to you what Dr. Roger Teal says. His book is called This Life is Joy. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous book. He says, that great spiritual teacher of light, however, transcended this either-or situation by invoking a higher dimension of truth, transcending the laws by extending what? Divine love. By extending divine love. What he wrote was never disclosed, but when he got down and he wrote something in the dirt, and then when people saw what he wrote, then they started to disperse. And then he said to the rest that were there, who among you is without sin? And they all left. And then he turned to the woman and he said, where are your accusers? And she looked around and she said, they are here no more. And he said, well, they do not condemn you, so neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. What Roger goes on to say is the expression of higher wisdom and love. Now, we've talked about these last 2 weeks, love and wisdom. It's the male and the female aspect of our being, and both are important to bring forth the greatest experience of our light. We have to have love with wisdom, but we also have to have wisdom with love, because when we're making decisions and we're not centered in love, then we can make some pretty harsh decisions. But, and the same is true when we're just kind of out there, and I've shared this before, just love, love, love with no wisdom, we know we can get ourselves in all kinds of trouble. So I know nobody here has ever gotten themselves in trouble because of that. But Jesus was affirming the integrity and the power of the soul to override the errors of worldly mistakes. That's powerful. To override the errors of worldly mistakes. And I think that's one of our biggest things that we have to do in life, isn't it? To really let people off the hook. To let ourselves off the hook. And to walk in that place of the purity of love. And remember, forgiveness does not mean that we condone. It means that we step back. And as I'm going to talk about in a minute, we see each other. Set healthy boundaries. We always talk about that. There's a big difference in continuing to hold that sense. And, and in fact, when you look at, is there something in your life that it's time to forgive? Is there some grievance that you've been holding? Because what's happening is you're releasing toxins into your body. You're releasing toxins literally into your life. And sometimes when something happens to us, we kind of look out and we think, that person or that person's action, it diminished me in some way. It caused me to be less. It broke me. They are the reason why my life is the way that it is today. It's a lot of power to give somebody, isn't it? And the reality is that that's a figment of your imagination, because it's what you decide it is going to be. And when we move into this place where we are ready to let go, and we're going to move into love here as well, and we open ourselves up, the way will be made known. Our hearts will be softened. And you'll be amazed at what could be healed and what miracles can occur that will bless you over and over and over again. So, let go. This is the Christ way to let go. Okay, the second thing is intuition, which is our higher wisdom. And intuition comes to us sometimes through dreams, sometimes through happenstance, meetings, sometimes, again, for me, wisdom is many times just this inner knowing. It's this kind of nudging of some type of knowing inside of me, but it also comes in many other ways. Now, we talked about Joseph last week, and Joseph followed his intuition, and his intuition came in the form of dreams. Now, the thing about our intuition is it doesn't always make sense, does it? It doesn't. And that's where the last one, that's where we're going to trust. But he had to step way out of his element in order to follow this dreams, the intuition. Because in that day, an unmarried woman who was pregnant was usually stoned to death. But Joseph gets this intuitive dream that says, take Mary as your wife. Take her as your wife. And so against everything, against culture, against what people around him, I'm sure, were thinking, he did exactly that. And the next thing, he kept getting these wonderful hits of inspiration and intuition. And of course, the rest of the story is here we are. But what about Jesus? Was Jesus intuitive? Let's look at this. Matthew 17:27. But so that we may not offend them, go to the lake and throw out your line, take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. John 5:8, Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your bed, your sleeping pad, and walk. And John 11:43, when he had said this, he shouted with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. Were these intuitive hits that he just knew? Because I'm going to tell you, there's no logical explanation for any of it. But what we absolutely know is that he was so in tune with his higher wisdom, and he trusted it so much that things like this happened. And haven't you had those times in your life when you knew? I'm going to share with you a couple of personal stories. When I was 17, and I had my Volkswagen Beetle Bug, and in those days anyway, the heaters and defrosters in those things didn't work. I lived in Ohio. It was winter. So I go out and I clean as much as I can off my window, and I take off down my little road, and I'm getting ready to turn onto a somewhat busy street. And my little windshield wipers are going, but it's getting, my little viewpoint is getting littler and littler. But oh no, I'm going to keep on going. So I turn onto the street, and I'm going, and my visual being able to see is really getting worse and worse. But here's the thing that happened. It was like, bam, all of a sudden, it was, and it wasn't a voice, it was a knowing, pull over right now. And I pulled over, and I stopped. And I got out of my car, and 10 feet in front of me was a stopped garbage truck. I will never forget that, because there was no, there was a reason it was called Be Safe, but I still had that little hole of vision. I remember just going back and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Another time that I experienced intuition in a different way was in my marriage before Sean. It was almost to the end of the marriage. And I was walking with a friend, and my friend said to me, "When are you going to leave?" And I remember looking at her and saying, "I know that I will know when the time is right, but it's not today." And like, I knew it. I knew that to be true. And so a little bit of time progresses, something happens, and I'm intuited again to go to another friend. Nobody knew anything was going on. To go to another friend, tell her what's going on, and say, "If I should need a place to stay for a little bit, can I come?" Yes, yes. The very next day, things ended, and I ended up going to her house. And the thing about this is that I know for a fact that you guys know what I'm talking about. Because haven't you had those times when you said, "I knew it! I knew I should have done that. I knew that was going to happen." And it's a matter of trusting that intuition, that higher wisdom. And here's the thing, like I said, so many times, that intuition, that higher wisdom is not gonna make sense. But the more that you just move with it, the more that you're gonna know that you know that you know. And you absolutely will. So open yourself up to the call of your higher wisdom through intuition, because this is the Christ way. And then the G is forgive, and this is forgiving through service. You know, Jesus' message was one of service. In John 13, 14, and 15, "So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought also to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you." Mark 9:35, "And he sat down and called the 12. And he said to them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all." Mark 10:45, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." So to be in service is to be open to opportunities to make a difference. That's what it's about. Be open to opportunities to make a difference. You know, I happen to be one of those people. I love Facebook, and maybe it's because I have a tendency to see the positive, and there's been so many wonderful videos lately about people showing up for people, and it just warms my heart. And there was one where a man was just standing there, and he noticed a woman walk across the street, and she got to a vendor, she got 2 meals, and then he saw her walk back to the fence by where she was, and she sat down next to a homeless man, and she ate this meal with him. And he actually got a picture of her eating this meal with him. You know, and it's things like that. It's just opportunities that we take to make a difference. To make a difference for somebody. That's what service is. Anytime that we're being served, somebody's making a difference for us, right? Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Teal says that serving is our portal to interconnectedness, to oneness. And it absolutely is that. It's where we move away from separation, and compassion overtakes us. You know what compassion is? It's the desire to alleviate the suffering of another. And how could you do that except through some type of service? So to give by being in service, that is the Christ way. And then the H is for heart. And this is to live from your heart and to live from love. I want to read to you what Emmett Fox, a great metaphysician and prolific author, said. And this is powerful. "There is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer, no disease that enough love will not heal, no door that enough love will not open. It makes no difference how deep set the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world." And what I can tell you from experience, this is 100% true. Love is the one and only power. Love has the opportunity to heal our minds, to heal our hearts, to heal our bodies, and to ultimately heal our world. And you know, for me, love is oneness. And Jesus was all about that, wasn't he? He didn't see separation. He didn't think people were less than him or not worthy of their love. He absolutely just loved them. And one of my very favorite parts, there's actually a couple, but one in the movie Avatar. Have you seen the movie Avatar? And it's a point at which one of them looks at the other one and they say, I see you. And they're not talking about, I see your physical body. Like something has transcended to such a deep place that they say, I see you. And you know, no matter how awful someone is showing up, no matter how seemingly impossible it appears that this could ever heal, when you stay in that place of loving them, miracles will happen. They always do. But in our humanness, we don't always stay there, do we? But we can practice more and more. So, and I love this. This is from the Zen Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh, and this is 4 questions to open the heart to empower love. Number 1, do I understand you enough? Do I water your seed of suffering? Do I water your seeds of joy? Please tell me how I can love you better. Powerful questions, huh? So, to live from your heart to love, that is the Christ way. And the last one is trust. This is a big, big, big one, because I'm going to tell you, Jesus trusted. Boy, did he trust. I mean, whether he was standing and he didn't have enough food, for people, and he raises the basket up, he's trusting. When he's telling somebody that they're healed, he's trusting. And you talk about the ultimate trust. I think personally that Jesus would have wanted a pretty normal life. He probably would have wanted to ultimately get married and have children, to, be a carpenter, to continue to do what he did to help people, and to live a long life. And last week we talked about the life that you plan and the life that you lead are many times quite different. I know it has been for me. But that's where the power of this comes in, the power of trust. Robert Raines writes, to go with the flow of life is to live without a map, to be vulnerable to having your plans changed, your heart broken, your dreams unfulfilled. It is to trust that God is in the rapids of change as well as in the rocks of continuity. It is being able to stop digging your heels in against the tide of tomorrow. It is exercising a suppleness of spirit in which you respond to the nudgings and promptings of grace, moment by moment, day by day, in a kind of lovemaking with life. Trust. This is the Christ way. So, as we look at this whole idea of being the light, I really believe that these 5 things can help that light to brighten in ourselves and in the world around us. To be willing to let go, to step into forgiveness, to open yourself up to that higher wisdom, those intuitive hits, and act upon them. To move into giving through service to humanity. To move into your heart space. To live from your heart, to live from love. And to trust. Even as our world is today, to trust that it's all unfolding exactly as it's supposed to be at this point, but it doesn't have to continue in that direction. Because you know why? You are the light of the world. You, each and every one of you, can make a difference. Just let your light shine. Just let your light shine. So Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. I see a blessed holiday season. And again, I see every one of us just radiating and beaming with light, that when we walk out of this place, wherever we go, people are going, whew, I don't know what just passed me, but that felt good. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.